Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage. Let's try this again. Okay, so I had another streaming issue. What I did this time is I just shut everything off, including my router and modem, and then I restarted everything back up. Immediately started streaming again to do this one, and it's all working great now. So, lately that's what's been working. So, going to this, I'll have to do an update for this because yeah, Twitch isn't going to solve their issue. I don't think any more. If you do have a playback issue on any of these videos or anybody on Twitch, folks, seriously, you can report playback issues on these voids or VODs, excuse me. And one of the top options is audio stuttering. So they know it's an issue. They've been made aware. So at least we've made it that far. But yeah, I hope they eventually fix this because yeah, this is truly frustrating for everybody. So, welcome to the channel, folks, where we chat about games, the industry. We showcase some previews and reviews on here, and then, of course, stream for fun. Though today it's a little different, and the reason is because the economy still matters to everybody. So I'm going to try to keep this under 30 minutes. We'll see how well I do. But the economy is important because ultimately it helps you get the life that you want. It provides you the opportunity to get there through goals as long as you make those goals. And also, it helps you take on more responsibility so your life can be more fulfilling and you can have more enjoyment. And ultimately, too, it provides a cash cow so that when you can't work anymore or you wish to retire, you're able to instead of just continuing to work until you ultimately can't. And none of us want to be there, and so it's always best to start money management and saving and investing as soon as you can. So this is not going to be, advice on finances on what stocks to buy and what's going to be hot later this year or next year. This isn't what I'm going to be talking about. I'm just talking about the overall health of the economy, mostly in the United States, some in other first world and developing countries, and then ultimately what you can do starting now to kind of prepare for multiple possibilities that we're looking at into the future. So we got to start at the beginning of all of this mess. So we had COVID, November 2019, actually right when my son was born. And, with that, we had lockdowns. And when we had those lockdowns, this was a global governmental response of every government. So when we locked everything down, we globally synced all of our economies exactly at the same time. And so lately, it was pretty good in 2020 and most of 2021. It was good for everybody. But inflation started running really hot. Why? Well, during these lockdowns, they gave us stimulus, not just on an individual basis, like you and I, taxpayers, but also allowing companies and small businesses and hedge funds and municipal funds and mutual funds and etc. and investors, banks, gave them all extra access to liquidity, basically cash or future loans on cash, to be able to continue to run the businesses and to pay the employees and to operate. And so everything still worked pretty good, but there was so much of it. We're talking like $9-10 trillion just in the United States. We're talking about so much extra money so fast that everybody went out and spent it. And the ultimate idea was, well, it's not my money, really, it's the government's money. And when we are in care of someone else's stuff, we usually don't care for it as much. We don't make as good of decisions and choices. And so we went out and bought everything. Consoles, TVs, cars, homes, big toys like ATVs and side-by-sides and boats. We bought second homes. We bought homes for an Airbnb. I mean, we had the biggest Airbnb explosion ever. Verbo was another one. We had all of these new SPACs coming online, of these new companies that were going to be public, like Dutch Brothers, a coffee company. And so, yeah, we had all of this purchasing. And at the same time of these lockdowns, it interrupted the supply chains all over the world because people weren't making, people weren't manufacturing, people weren't shipping. There wasn't enough to meet the demand. And so shipping was expensive. Those items and products were expensive because there weren't as many, and the demand was higher at this point because people had money. And so we created this really fast acceleration of inflation. So in the United States, it got to 9.1, which I don't believe. I believe it was quite a bit higher than that because, they ultimately said last year that food went up like 35-40% on food. And I've even been tracking this myself since the end of 2020. And yeah, I can tell you that from 21 to now, our food price has doubled. It costs double the amount of money to provide the same amount of food for the same number of family members. And so with this inflation, it eventually started eating into people's lifestyles, which they never like, right? We never like that. And so we were demanding higher wages. Well, ultimately, the company still needs to make money. They have higher inflation too, called PMI, and they need to be able to make sure that the business is still profitable. Now, if you're a public company, there's even more pressure because you have huge, big-time investors and hedge funds that invest in your company. And there is like a responsibility to those investors to make them money. Otherwise, they get super pissed. And there's a whole political side to it, too. And I'm sure there's a behind-the-curtain side to this as well. And when you piss people off behind the curtain, that can be really bad for you and your family. So yeah, there is a push to make things work. And so people were cutting the quality of products, or trying to outsource a little more than they normally do, while people in first world countries especially were demanding higher wages. But wages, folks, never keep up. It just does not happen. I can go into another video if you guys are interested. Go ahead and leave a comment below if you actually like some of this economic news. But yeah, it never keeps up. It's impossible. Mechanically, it's impossible. And also we got to see remote work because of this, so people were able to move and kind of live where they wanted while still working for the job that they wanted. So a lot of people actually left California, New York, Oregon, Washington, and some of these more expensive places, and actually moved to a place that was less expensive, like Boise, Idaho, like Denver, Colorado. They moved to these cheaper spots while still getting a higher wage or higher cost of living area. Like moving from an average in California, I think, is close to $100,000 a year. And then they moved to an area where maybe the average is $50,000 or $60,000 a year. And so you got all of this extra buying power in these cheaper areas. And this made the housing market explode. It got really hot really fast. I mean, when we bought our house in 2017, it cost $220,000 basically. And at its peak, we could sell it for $440,000 in just 5 years, which is insane. And now we could sell it for about probably $375,000. So it's come down some, but not enough for people to be able to buy it because the interest rates are so high. While people had stimulus, most of it still, there were extra programs too, like you could get extended unemployment, you could get extended food stamps, you didn't have to pay rent, you didn't have to pay on your car loan, you didn't have to pay your student loan debt. So like people had all of this extra money and were spending it. Well, toward the end of all of that, the government, the Federal Reserve, started raising interest rates on the banks. And when the banks have an increase in interest rate, well, then they have to increase their rates in order, as a business, to keep running. So that means higher mortgages for you, higher for personal loans, business loans, everything. And now that stimulus is technically over. Some states ended it sooner than others, but everything is over now. There is not a single forbearance or extra stimmy program out there. Well, now we have this higher inflation still. And if you're in Europe, oh my word, I feel so bad for you folks because your inflation is still insane and it's actually going back up right now, which is crazy. And I think it will maybe go up a little bit in the United States. Right now we're at about 4%, which is still pretty much double of what it was. But I think it is maybe going to tick up just a little bit before it starts heading back down some more. And I'll get into that in just a minute. And so the stimulation's over. These interest rates are high. And so people can't afford stuff anymore. And because of inflation, we've had it for so long, well, you have to eat, you have to have water, you want to have a roof over your head, and you have to have electricity in order to maintain your standard of living. And so what I've been seeing for the last year, maybe a little more, is people are now selling those boats, those jet skis. They're selling their extra trucks. They're selling their side-by-sides and sports bikes and Harley Davidson motorcycles, and like they're selling basically a lot of stuff they don't need. I'm seeing RVs, I'm seeing small businesses. They have been going out of business for quite a while. New ones have cropped up, but they can't stay afloat, so then they fail anyway. And so we're seeing fleets of vehicles. We're seeing taxi companies going out of business. We're seeing kind of like the small kind of repairman business. We're seeing those work trucks right now getting repoed and being dumped onto the market. And I'm seeing those more and more often this year. And so this is starting to become a problem where we bought so much future demand that now there isn't any demand. And when people aren't willing to buy something, you have to lower the price in order to stay alive. And when you have to do that for too long, you get into layoffs. And this becomes a real problem because when money is no longer circulating around, or you're not able to get debt, which is basically what the world does now, they just want more and more access to debt. We even have commercial real estate where you don't even have to pay on the principal of the loan. You just have to pay the interest, which in my mind is freaking insane. Because what if the interest rate goes up like it did? Instead of 3, maybe 4%, you're now paying 8 or 10. And that's a big jump. If you want to think of it like $100, if you had a 3% interest rate on $100, it'd be $103. Right? That's ultimately what you would pay at the end of the loan. And that's if you paid it all in 1 month. Anyway, if it went up to 8%, you're now paying $108. Now multiply that by tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's the issue of some of these companies, even the big ones. Even if your loan is only a few $1,000,000, which is not a lot of money in the business world, man, an extra, 3 to 6% on your interest, that's a lot. And so eventually it gets too expensive. And when people can't pay their loans back, well, the item or whatever it was gets repoed. The stuff put up for collateral, an asset, something that actually has value. Unlike a loan. So the car, the house, the property, the warehouse, the office space, those go back to the banks, and we're starting to see that on a larger scale around the United States. But the problem is that the banks don't want these. They don't want the residential homes either for people that bought maybe in 21 and now can't afford their payment because their interest rate is too high, or because their insurance has gone up or their taxes have gone up. And that's something too. As the value of something goes up, if it's taxed, also the taxes go up. So our taxes went up about probably $600 a year. In some states, they've almost doubled, like Florida, which is crazy. I couldn't imagine my taxes doubling in the span of like 18 or 24 months. I would lose my freaking socks, man. I'd be like, I'm going to lose my house. Where's my family going to live? And man, if that's some of you guys, man, I feel for you. I know 18 to 34 years old is my base here. And man, I feel for you guys if you guys are there. And so, yeah, as these banks get on these assets. And also, if people don't have money and the interest rates are too high, well, the banks also don't get any money on loans because they're not making any. So we see Wells Fargo, they're no longer doing mortgages. They're like, nope, no more. We see no more money making in that sector of the business. There's other banks too. I can't remember their name off the top of my head. I think one of them was Citigroup. They're no longer giving auto loans because, again, things are not good in the auto market. They can't sell new cars because they're too much because people don't have money. So if you're looking in the market for another car, a used one, I would suggest actually saving up and getting it now or waiting for another, 2-3 years to buy a car, because pretty soon the prices of used cars are going to go up. And I'm actually already seeing that with like the vehicles that my wife and I have. We have an SUV and I have a coupe, so I can commute to work and stuff. And those vehicles, just on a normal basis now, have actually gone up in price. Especially the commuter cars, because they save more on gas. Which, where I live right now, it's just over $4. Man, it's expensive. I've heard some places are closer to $6. So these banks have less loans. These banks also are getting assets back that they don't want, that they can't really make money on. And they're finding out they can't sell them for what they were originally worth or what they loaned them for. And so they're taking a loss. Now, when a bank takes enough of a loss, people get worried and they pull their money out, right? It's called a bank run. And this is what happened to Silicon Valley Bank. And then what happens to your money? Well, it's insured by the FDIC and yada yada, etc., until eventually the FDIC doesn't have money anymore. And the FDIC has already said, look, if we have a serious bank run, we can't handle it. There's a YouTube channel, very boring to watch and listen to. I only watch a few of them. But they have a monthly meeting to talk about the state of the business for banking and for lending in the country and that kind of thing. Because that's their job, is to keep track and regulate and ensure deposits of normal people like you and me. But they get to tweak some of those rules sometimes. They can also have declare holidays where the bank is just shut down. The individual banks, they can shut them down too. And so, as it becomes harder to get loans, businesses also can't stay open. Businesses also operate on a line of credit. They don't operate on sales. They need enough sales to stay alive so they can pay off their loan, right? And eventually get big enough and have enough collateral in order to take out another loan or a bigger loan than the previous one that they did. But they never really operate at a complete, paid off, debt-free type of business model where it's just cash flow after a certain point. Maybe small businesses do, like restaurants that have been in a family forever. But most businesses do not operate like that. And I can guarantee your business also operates off of debt, just like mine. Well, when the industry slows down, when businesses see less customer flow, people, then they see less people buying things. And now, they don't have as much access to loan or credit like they used to through the banks, because the banks don't want to loan it because they're getting all of these assets back because people can't pay them. Well, eventually the business can't stay open anymore. I'm starting to see around in my town, we got about 50,000 people, and there's just more and more and more stores that are actually closing or trying to move locations to get a better spot or a cheaper area to try to stay alive. And eventually that's just not going to work. And like I said, we just have more buildings and more storefronts that are empty and are going out of business. And, again, they can survive for a while, but it's not forever. Eventually they close. We're also seeing, too, some businesses, big companies like Walmart, Fred Meyer, Kroger, Target, they're cutting back. Amazon, too, they're cutting back. They're laying off workers. They're closing stores. They're shutting down warehouse space. Or they're trying to sell it, or they're canceling building permits because they don't see the demand anymore like they did in 2020 and 2021 and in a little bit of 2022. It's really starting to hit home now that inflation is high. People don't have enough money. People paid too much for the stuff they bought a year or 3 years ago, depending when people bought. Interest rates are too high. People can't afford stuff. Food is freaking through the roof. And so what do people do? They just bunker down and try to hold out as much as they can. They start working multiple jobs. As some of these businesses go down, you actually have less job creation. We've slowly been having unemployment going up. It was 3.4, now it's 3.7, just after about 3 or 4 months. We're seeing more and more people take on continuous unemployment, so they're not getting off of it, they're staying on. And we're starting to see this uptick. Maybe if you pay attention enough, you're like, but the markets, look at what they're doing. Yeah, this is normally what happens. In 94, in 2020, in 2000, and 2010, I want to say 2010-ish, 2008, so 2007, 2008, we saw on a percentage basis, we saw pretty good run-ups in all of the stock markets. And it wasn't just the United States. It was other markets around the world too. Like Japan or Russia or Germany or the UK or Canada, Brazil. We saw run-ups in other markets too. But they weren't as globally synced then like they are now. And so, yeah, when this really starts to go downhill, when the market figures out, when the big dogs start figuring out, this is not going to go good, the system can't sustain itself at the price level that it is at today. And earnings from companies, they're not coming out good either. They're still meeting or beating expectations sometimes. But 60% of the companies in the S&P 500 did not meet their earnings. And so they made less money, or they didn't make any money at all. Like GameStop, for example, they haven't made money in like 3 or 4 quarters. Pretty much a year now. And this isn't just GameStop. This is a everybody problem. Nobody is making money. And so what can you do about all this? Because I don't think the worst of the pain has happened yet. So what can you do about this? Well, make sure your job is secure. Please. If you do not have money coming in, or your business, job or business, doesn't matter at this point. The point is to get cash flow into your pocket. And if that's not happening, you can't sustain the lifestyle you even currently have. Probably everybody has cut back some. I know my wife and I have. We're still able to go on small vacations, but basically we got one more that we're doing, and then that's it for the rest of the year. And we'll have some more little things, maybe like a day type of trip. But yeah, the multi-day, that's over right now. And it probably will be over for a while. We'll maybe have 1 or 2 next year. But we've been battening down the hatches for a couple years now. And when we got our stimulus, we paid off debt. So, job security. Stop. What do they call it? Stop quiet quitting. Okay? Do the best you can at your job. And show that you're a better worker. And you are less likely to lose your job. Because the company, if there's layoffs, they will fire the people that they don't need as a position, or they will fire the people that don't work as good, and they will keep the best workers and fire them last. That is a guarantee. That's how it's always worked. That principle isn't changing today. Secondly, like I already mentioned, pay off debt. Free up that cash every month. Get that payment back. If you have a car payment, if you have a house payment, well, if you have a house payment, your debt is probably like mine, hundreds of thousands plus. So that ain't going away anytime soon. But if you do have a house payment, can you take PMI off? Maybe. Also, curb appeal. If you don't live in an HOA, You can let your front lawn look like junk. And then when the assessor comes by once a year, which for us is usually between April through July, they look by and they're like, yeah, it doesn't look as nice, so it's not going to sell as well. And so, we won't have the assessed property go up in value as much. And that saves you, in the long run, that saves you on your taxes, actually, by a little bit. And hey, it's a little bit. You do a little bit, 10 or 15 times, it adds up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars, folks. But yeah, pay off your loans. If you have healthcare bills or medical bills, if you have, cars, if you have credit card debt, pay it off. Pay it off. Whatever is the smallest, pay that off first. And then once that's paid off, you use that payment that you had, let's say it was $89, and you put that on top of paying off your next biggest debt. And then you pay that one off, and then you add those two payments together on top of your next smallest, and you just keep accumulating and growing, and boom, 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 you can get all your debt paid off. And if you have something come up where you need some extra cash now, you can pull from those previous payments where now the debts are paid off and you've been adding it to your next payment. You can just take that off, and hey, you have a few $100 to help you pay for something. Also, have some money that is set aside that is just for emergencies. Okay, if you're just by yourself, have $1,500. If you have a family, have at least $5,000. I'm just a little under that myself. But yeah, that's the goal. It's $5,000. Your refrigerator breaks, there's $1,000. Your car breaks down, that's $1,200, or maybe $1,500, depending what broke. If you got something wrong with your house, that's $2,000-$3,000. So yeah, it goes fast. It goes fast if you got a family, folks. It really does. It's pretty insane. Another thing you can do is get a second job. Again, it's about cash flow. It's not about being happy. It's not about having time off right now. Okay? You have the opportunity to get cash in your freaking pocket, and you should be doing it. Especially with the recession that we have, and as it's continuing to grow worse as the numbers show. Not just here, all over the world, folks. All over the world. So yeah, get a second job. That way, if you get laid off at one, you still have another one. Hopefully you don't get laid off at both, but if money is super tight right now, I would be working 2 jobs. I would be busting my can. I got my family, my house. My cars I already have all paid off, all 3 of them. We don't have any credit card debt. We don't have any medical bills. We have some cash for an emergency, that we can access at the bank. But still, it's tight. It's even tight for me. And yeah, if you're in worse shape, boy, it is time to get out of that hole. Seriously. Do not wait. Do not wait. Let's see. Another thing you can do is buy what you know you already need or will need in the future. So, buy food. Start stacking some of it. My wife and I, we got 4 months of food in the pantry. And we've been stacking ever since Ukraine and Russia happened. So yeah, and one of the biggest parts of our budget is actually food every month. Food is just stupid high, especially if you got a family. But yeah, start stacking food. Take an extra $10 every month and just go buy some stuff. Buy some cheap stuff. Again, this is not fun food, okay? This is emergency food. This is food to keep you guys alive or to kind of supplement some meals or something. Also, keep family and friends close. Know who you can trust if stuff get really bad. And some places are worse than others. Like Phoenix right now, the housing price has dropped about 30-40% depending on what neighborhood you're in Phoenix, which is insane. Yeah, they're having catastrophic level of oopsie over there because people just aren't buying homes and businesses can't sustain the properties. and it's not good. If you do want some channels to look up yourself, ones that I watch, get some pen and paper and write these down. So, Reventure, is it Reventure Real Estate? Oh man, I can't remember exactly, but yeah. Reventure, I think it's Reventure Real Estate. He's really good. He is a younger guy, but boy, he knows what he's talking about. He's done a lot of research. Stephen Van Meter. Meter is spelled Metre. He's an older guy, black hair, always has a dress shirt on. And he is a financial guy, investor, that's been doing that as a job for quite a long time. He's been doing it since before 2000. So he's been doing it for a while. A really good educational channel is Wealthion. Man, I love that show. I can't watch them all. I'm a little busy right now. But these are usually hour-long shows with experts in their field all over the country or even from other countries. And he's a great show. David Lin, that's Lin, is another one. He started his own show, and that's a really good one. Stansberry Research is another. Blockworks, which works is spelled Worx. That's another good one. Kitco News, that's Kitco. That's another good one. Again, a lot of these shows are experts coming on and talking about what they're seeing. And some of these folks, they have access to data you and I don't. It's not like we can go look it up online. If you want to do your own research, the Maverick of Wall Street, I think, is another good one. If you want to do some of your own research, Statista is a good website. So they just have compiled data on charts and stuff, which is really good, pretty much on anything. Another one is, oh my word, I just thought of it. Oh, TradingView. There's Tiger Brokers, and there's other ones out there too, but I personally really enjoy TradingView for markets. You can pretty much look up anything you want for free. It's nice. So you can track stuff a little bit. Man, and there was one more. Oh yeah, the Fred at St. Louis. So the FRED. So if you type in Fred database, it's a whole bunch of boring stuff. It's a government website. It's crappy to try to sift through stuff, but just try to go for what you're looking for. But like if you wanted to see a raw data chart of inflation in the United States, or you wanted to see total deposits in the banking system, you would just type in Fred and then whatever you want to look up, and usually it'll bring it up for you within the first 3 results on Google or Bing or whatever you're using. And I've used that to look at like the TGA. I've used that to look at reverse repo markets, federal funds rate, all that type of boring stuff. And as you start to listen to some of these shows and you hear from some of these experts, you start to learn what some of these mean. And some of these give you indicators to how healthy something really is. And it shows you what's really happening, and where we're going. And that's why I'm making this video, is because I care about y'all. And, you know, I love games. We enjoy games. We like escaping from reality. But boy, sometimes it's really horrifically bad to escape from reality. Sometimes it's best. Sometimes it's best to just stare it in the face and deal with it, or to prepare while you still have time. Because if you're one of those guys that's just like, well, whatever happens, I'll deal with it, or I'm just gonna keep living my life, boy, stuff is gonna just smack you in the face. And especially as you become a full adult and you're completely self-sustaining, and even more so as you add on responsibilities like being married or having children, etc., or more cars, buying a house, boy, you have to pay attention. You can't just sweep shit under the rug anymore. And if you do, you're a fool. Really. You are an idiot. And you are going to lose the life that you've worked hard to get. So please, folks, pay attention to what's going out there. Do some preparation, especially pay off those debts. Get that monthly payment back for you to utilize however you wish. Keep your job secure. If you don't have a stable job, okay, if you work at some coffee shop, get the frick out of there. Go work at a real job, okay? Don't work at GameStop. Don't work at Hobby Lobby, okay? Go somewhere where they have food, right? Work somewhere where people have to have what that company sells. That's where you want to work. So I work in industry. We make pulp, which is the raw material for paper mills. And the paper mills make whatever they make, right? Toilet paper, TP, paper plates, napkins, paper towels, siding on houses if it's hardy, etc. Pulp is used all over the place, so that ain't going away. So my company is more secure than a lot of other companies that are cutting back right now. We're still running at full production. We haven't slowed down at all. We have added some more customers because some of our purchasers have cut back a little bit, but we still have plenty of other companies that are wanting to buy pulp from us, and that's good. So yeah, work for something like that. Is it a harder job? Is it longer hours? Is it a worse schedule? Yes. But I mean, what is your lifestyle worth? And right now, I'm willing to work 80 hours a week every week. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Because I'm not letting my family down and we're not losing our house. So, hopefully, those of you that have made it, thank you. I got a heart for this too, because there's just such a lack of financial education in our public school system. It's a total joke. And they don't teach you any of this stuff because they want you to be dumb. That's really what I believe. Because the more educated you are, the more you realize how manipulated stuff is through the news, how manipulated things are through the economy, how manipulated stuff is for the political campaigns, and hey, vote for me because free stuff. I mean, dude, it does not freaking work that way. And, maybe we can't change things on a big level yet, but you can change things on an individual level. And I got friends that still believe the news, still bicker about politics, and I'm past that. I got a family, I got property, and I got a future in mind that I want me and my family to have, and that's what I'm going for. And so I'm doing everything I can on an individual basis. I've moved forward a lot in 10 years, and a lot of them are exactly where they were 10 years ago. And it's really sad to see that. So please, don't get stuck. Please, don't turn your back on this. Stay vigilant. Do some planning. Do what you can. Prepare as best you can. And that's all you can ask for. So, stay with the channel, folks. We're going to have some more entertainment showing your way. And we're enjoying going through Dark Souls right now. My wife and I were also going to be going through It Takes Two. We just did our first kind of like trial run of kind of how we want to do It Takes Two and talk about relationship and marriage advice as we play through that game. If you have no idea what It Takes Two is, go ahead and take a minute to look that up. And we also suggest that you guys should actually play it if you have the ability. It's pretty good for what it is. It's pretty cheap counseling. And that's at least something. It's at least a place to start. So anyway, thanks for enjoying the channel, folks, and hanging in there with me and stuff, and even stuff like this. Again, it's not gaming related, but I believe it's really important. And so I'll share stuff like this every so often because it's not just about entertainment for you folks. It's about investing in you guys because we don't have that enough in our world. So you can follow me on Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. You can also follow me at YouTube at GamingGarbage22. And we got a bunch of different stuff over there, different playlists. So yeah, click on the playlist. I also do share some stuff through the community page. So be sure to take a look at that as well. And every once in a while there's stuff to vote on as I'm growing and adapting and changing stuff in the channel to make it better suited for what you guys want on the channel. So with that, thank you for joining. I hope you guys are doing well. Hang in there. The end of the week is on its way, and I'll see you guys on the next one.